So can you tell us the current state of play on the new album? What's actually happening now?
It's been, actually we had it done a lot earlier than we thought we would need it. We usually finish an album and then put everything out like a month later, you know. We've had this done for a while, about 4 or 5 months, really, and I'm really happy with it. It's really, I didn't really go all out this time with all the guest stars like I did with Trash and Hey Stupid. That was fun to do because it was all the people that I sort of like, I got all the people that I wanted to work with in 2 albums, and I said, okay, enough of that. You know, I worked with Chris Cornell on this one from Soundgarden. Was he really the only sort of guest star on the album, and that worked out really well with him because I told him what I was after, and he kind of conformed some of the songs that he had already written, and then when I got them, we just kind of did some surgery on it and made it into, gave it the Alice Cooper touch, you know. And it's the first real, that awful word, conceptual album that we've done since Nightmare, really. I mean, full concept when it comes to a full storyline.
Yeah, because I was going to say that the last 2 albums sort of had a kind of theme to them in a way.
Well, they had a sound theme, I think. The one, Trash, had a certain theme with just the sound of it. We repeated certain structures in the sound over and over and over again to create, its own sound. And same with Hey Stupid. But this one is 3 or 4 different producers on this one. We gave everybody 3 songs, 4 songs, and said, okay, you'll be good for this kind of sound, you know, and this producer would be good for this more produced kind of sound, and we need more theatrics, so let's use this guy. So we weren't, nailed down to one guy with one sound, you know. But it's really I think it gives the album a lot of air, you know.
So what is the concept behind it then?
Well, it's really it's based on, with what's going on right now in the whole world. I think there's a lot of fear going on. I think there's just a lot of fear. Crime is the biggest problem. I think that there's a lot of, there's just a lot of anxiety out there. And I wanted to boil it down to what would happen if we just took one aspect of it, like temptation. This whole album is based on temptation. And it's really based on good and evil. What's good, what's evil, and who wins in this one conflict. And there's this one character who's the showman, who brings this freak show kind of into town. It's not really a freak show, it's kind of a life show. And he wants this little kid, out of all these other kids, he wants to bring this one kid into the show, and he wants to introduce him to the world via the show. And so but the only thing that the kid notices is all the way through the show that all the characters in the show, whether they're tempting him with money, power, sex, they're all dead. All the characters are dead. You know, they're glamorous for a second, but then they get increasingly more dead to the point when he realizes that they're actually dead. And so in the end, what the kid realizes is the fact that the guy's really not offering him anything that's alive at all. He's offering him death on every level. And I think that's really true with most indulgences in life. Anything that's overdone is death. And so the kid doesn't go with him. And it ends up being the good guys win in the end of this one. It's sort of like the old Alice character and sort of the innocent Alice character. The boy sort of represents an innocent Alice. And the old character is sort of the tempter, the older Alice, which is much more worldly, much more vicious, much more sly. He's not really he's not Satan. He's not, he's more like a character that's sort of like trying to deprive the kid of possibilities of his, of what he could be. He's trying to take that away from him. And I think the world is doing that. I think the world is depriving kids of youth. They're trying to get them to grow up way too fast.
And spend
kids
money.
should be kids a lot longer. Yeah, and I really, right now in Phoenix, there's a big discussion on, well, is it really okay for kids to have guns? Is that a question? In Phoenix, it's totally legal for anybody to own a gun. I mean, I don't care if you're 10 years old, you can own a gun. And they're going, well, you don't want to take away his rights. Give me a break. I mean, the kid can't drive till he's 17, but he can have a gun. And this is truly the law. You can carry a gun. It's an old Western law, you know. Of course, we have very few carjackings there because everybody's armed to the teeth. You know, if you drive up to an old lady in her car, you know, and you look in, she's got a .45 automatic sitting there, and so it really is truly very, very little crime when it comes to that because everybody's carrying. It's like the old West. But still, I mean, it's amazing to me that there's even a controversy about a 10-year-old owning a gun. Any gun. I don't care if they can own an assault rifle if they want to. You know.
Do you think it'll ever go to being like in Britain where it is illegal unless you've got a very sort of specific license and you have to see the police and meet them before you get one?
I think it's already gone there. I think it's getting to the point now, you know, where they're going to ban most guns, you know, which is probably not a bad idea, you know. But I mean, that means that they're going to have stricter laws with people that do have. If they catch somebody with a gun, they put them away forever. You know, that's really what it should be.
I mean, a lot of your audience is very young, and you've always managed to like avoid preaching or being patronising in a way. You've still managed to be, you know, like their buddy rather than being, because you've been through a lot.
But you know what? It's a lot. When Alice Cooper in the 70s, in the late 60s, 70s, and 80s, it was a lot less vicious than it is now. Alice Cooper always had fun with violence because it was so unreal. My violence was Sam Peckinpah violence, and it was James Bond violence, and it was West Side Story, and everything that was cinema. You know, it was very cinegraphic. You know, and it was very. It was all totally choreographed. And it was there the same way you would go to see a movie and you would have fun watching the movie when this guy got his head cut off or that. You knew it was all fake. Now, that violence that I was portraying as fun is real. And I mean, I just can't be part of that anymore. I can't be part of that kind of violence because it's now people are getting killed, whereas before nobody was getting hurt. Nobody was even getting hurt. Now people are, you know, it's no big deal. People getting killed is no big deal anymore. So I mean, to me, this is kind of a statement on that too. This album is not trying to be political. It's, I think, if anything, it's more spiritual. You know, on a level of you know, if you want to have a society that has black and white, what's happening now is everything's black. There is no white. You know, so there is no, you know, dare Alice Cooper say it. The whole world needs a shot of morality. You know?
Yeah. Are you still out to shock as well, though, or? I
think that's a shocking statement, what I just said. You know, I mean, it's totally opposite of what Alice Cooper used to say because the world wasn't like that when Alice Cooper came out. Everybody was kind of peace and love, you know, and so we threw in the shock level at them. Now, I'm saying, let's back off because people are taking it seriously and people are doing what they see in the movies and people are doing what they see on TV. And they're doing it for real, so it's not fun anymore. You know, it's not fun when you really are afraid to walk out your door because you could get shot just accidentally, and nobody cares. It's a kind of a thing where, like, you know, life is cheap anymore. Man, I just don't believe that.
You've always had like a sort of tongue-in-cheek approach to your lyrics as well. There's always been some humour in there. Is that
this
still?
This album is very funny. It's got a lot of funny things. There's a song called. Well, I can go through all of them, really. You know, but there's a bunch of them that, you know, "Lost in America" is one of the funniest songs we ever wrote. You know, none of it rhymes. You know, and it's really, really purely stupid, which is great. You know, but it really rocks. I mean, it's just pure Detroit Iggy and the Stooges kind of rock. You know, and then right next to that is a really pretty ballad. You know, but I mean, there's a lot of ironic lyric things in there. I spent probably more time on the lyrics on this album than I have for any other album I've ever written. I really, really sweated over these lyrics because, you know, I think too many people just throw the lyrics away, you know, and it's such a powerful tool, you know, to actually hear something on a record and go, oh, I get that.
Do you think people, like in bands, maybe take themselves a bit too seriously these days? In a way, they're a bit sort of, you know, trying to be too deep and meaningful and not actually enjoying being in a band?
Well, I think there's so much depression I mean, you know, how much flannel can you wear? You know, I mean, you get to a point where heroin and flannel and oh, the world is dying, and oh, it's awful, and you know, I mean, you're sitting there and it's like, these people need a party. You know, they should go somewhere and really take a week off, get out of the rain, get out of Seattle for a while.
Do you think this is going to be accessible to, because with Trash and Hey Stupid, you got a new type of audience as well that were maybe scared a bit of Alice Cooper and thought, oh no, that's a bit too weird for me?
You know, I really don't think Alice is weird anymore. I think Alice has really become, you know, a staple in rock and roll. I mean, when Alice's album comes out, oh, well, we got to hear that because this, you know, it's going to be this and that. And I always try to make up albums. I don't think I've ever made a gloomy album. I think Dada may be the closest thing to a morose album, you know. And that was so weird that nobody ever heard of it. You know, it was too weird for anybody. And it was dark. But I mean, I was dark then. I was very dark. But I mean, you know, all of my albums, I tried, even if I'm singing about necrophilia, you know, with Cold Ethel, it was always fun. You know, certainly wasn't to be taken seriously. But I think that the whole complexion of rock right now, and rap especially, I mean, is talking about, you know, real death. And I don't know, maybe I'm just don't want to live in the real world, but to me, I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in more of the fantasy aspect of it. Yeah.
Sorry, I was just
what
laughing at his stomach.
Was that your stomach?
Yeah.
Your stomach? The guy that got me here?
Whoa,
I thought it was the camera.
Sorry.
That was
just sort of threw me for a second.
That was like Alien. Things gonna pop out of his chest in a second.
Sorry, I've completely thrown what I was going to think there. So I was just trying to stop
So who was that? That was oh, okay.
Can we leave that in?
Sorry, yeah.
That was the salad.
So,
Gotta stop feeding these zoning guys.
I was going to say something then, and now I've lost it. I sure thought Barry. Sorry. Okay. I can go on to something
you know what
else
happens
anyway,
usually when
I go all over the
when
place
you ask
anyway.
me a question, I usually cover 9 questions. So
tick, 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 tick. Yeah, yeah, of course. So, are you up to speed? Yeah. Although you've said you haven't really sort of going to do all the guest appearances and all that sort of thing, how do you find it? Do you find that lots of people come up and say, can I write with you? Can I be on your next album? You know, people from bands and stuff. Well,
you know, it's funny. I think that there's sort of a community of rockers. Just about everybody you meet, you can write with. You know, I wrote things with Nikki Sixx. I wrote things with Joe Perry. You know, I wrote things with a lot of different people that we never ever did. You know, in fact, we don't even. I wish I knew where those tapes were, because there was some great stuff. You know, we did. We had a thing that we couldn't find the tape of one night when we were doing $1 Billion Babies, where it was Harry Nilsson, and Ringo, T-Rex, Mark Bolan, Rick Gretsch, and this was all in England. My band and everything, and we did like an hour version of Jailhouse Rock and an hour's version of Put the Lime in the Coconut, the X-rated version, and we can't find that tape anywhere. But I mean, any one of those people we could sit down and write with, because they're all writers, you know. And so I think that there's a potential to write with anybody. I mean, you could probably put me in a room with an alternative band. You could put me in a room with a rap band. You could put me in a band, and we'd find a way to write a song, you know. I think after like 25, 26 albums of doing that kind of writing, you adapt to whoever you're writing with.
Are you?
That's always exciting, though. I always think that's exciting. You know, sometimes combinations, you know. It would be very strange, like to write with Garth Brooks or something. You know?
Maybe you could do. I mean,
the dark side of Garth Brooks.
You're going to do like guest appearances yourself on other albums.
I did the Guns N' Roses thing, which was fun to do, because I've always had a real respect for Axl and those guys. We took them out on the Nightmare Returns. What year was that? 88, 87, 88. 86, yeah.
Gee, 87, sorry.
Yeah, and that was like they were coming right out of bars, you know, into the big thing. It was great because I watched those guys grow from that band to what they are now. And
follow
it was fun. You know, I've always felt very natural around those guys. You know, we were the same kind of band, same kind of rock and roll band.
Do you follow the current scene and you know what's going on closely, or do you just not really?
You know, I do. I listen to the radio, and if I hear something that makes me go, "What was that?" then I find out who that was. I think the last time that happened was probably Jane's Addiction. You know, I've heard some other records since then that were good records, but I don't know. I always kind of listen for that one thing that gets my attention. You know, that makes me go, you know, that was good. You know, I'd like, or any time that I give it the old. If you're driving in the Mustang and you turn it up, you know, that's the real clincher if it's a good record. You know, well, oh yeah, you got to hear that, and that happens every once in a while.
Are you totally happy and content in your career at the moment? Are you doing exactly what you want to do, and you've reached that point of, yeah, this is it, this is where I want to be?
I'm in a position now where I don't have to do what I used to have to do on schedule. In other words, I kind of call my own shots now, whereas before it was, okay, put an album out, then you do this, and then you tour for 2 years, and then you get right back in the studio and start writing now. You know, one of the good things about being one of the, sort of the, without being a dinosaur, being one of the elder statesmen without having white hair, is the fact that you can kind of call your shots at this point, you know. And I think it's more effective that way too, because then you're not always sort of available in the face of the public. You just come out when you have something really good. You come out with it, you know. And I think that's the secret to longevity: is don't put out garbage. Always just put out stuff when it's good. Too many bands just say, well, we have to do 2 albums a year, or we have to do an album a year, or we have to tour just to tour. I don't think that's smart. I think you only do those things when you really have something special.
Does that contentment sort of flow over into your personal life as well when you're happy? And
I'm more happy now than I've ever been. I really am. You know, slim, good looking.
I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing with you.
And we're not shaking. We're not dying. The ceiling's still there, so we're fine.
Okay. What about the band that you go out touring with? What's the situation on that? Do you sort of decide on that beforehand, or what's going on?
Yeah, if we were going to start touring, say if we were going to tour in June, we would have been rehearsing right now, because I believe in long rehearsals. You know, usually when we go out, we'll come up with 4 or 5 new stage things. I mean, major stage things that takes a lot of time to build and a lot of time to, you know, to get working perfectly. And musically, actually, it doesn't take that long, because you know, there's a certain diet of the old stuff that we have to do, you know, and I don't mind doing that. I'm one of those people that don't mind doing 18er schools out forever. You know, that's, to me, that's a compliment that they still want to hear it. But, you know, it's the new stuff that takes all the time, making sure that it works. And a lot of the stuff is dangerous, so you really want to make sure it works.
So are there any plans to come to Britain and do some shows?
Well,
or
at this point, the album probably won't be out. Well, when is the album coming out?
May.
June. Yeah, because that's right. This is coming out when the album's...
Yeah.
Okay.
We don't, who knows?
There's no
We won't be
plans
specific.
yet. Okay.
So when the album comes out...
So soon. Yeah. Okay. On the comic side of things, Toby was actually saying there's a comic thing involved. Can you tell us about that?
Well, we were working with Neil Gaiman on this, and we thought that the storyline was such a good, strong storyline that we wanted to get Neil Gaiman involved in it, because he's an old friend of ours, and we always liked Sandman and Death and those comics. And we said, what about putting this story, you know, as a comic book? Now, I don't know how many that means as far as a limited edition or what it means, but it's going to be a full-blown Neil Gaiman, Alice Cooper collaboration on this. And from what I've seen, I really like the artwork and the storyline so far. I think it's going to be done in 3 parts. And it's, you know, it's fun to work with somebody that I have never worked in that genre. We've done comic books. We did a comic book with Marvel from the inside, which was great, and it did real well. But this is like the first time we've actually ever been involved in the storyline of it. And it's really fun, because he's been over in Minnesota, 90 below, you know, faxing me things. Even the faxes are cold, you know, when we get them. And he'll tell me, you know, I got this idea for this and that. And he's a lot of fun to work with because he wants the details. And he says, what would this character think? Well, why would he do that? Why would Alice say that? You know, and you get into a lot of the psychodrama of why Alice would do this and, you know, why this character would do that. You know.
What about acting? Because you did obviously the Wayne's World thing and stuff. I
did a little thing for Maverick with Mel Gibson, with Mel, I call him Mel, and Jodie Foster, where it was fun because I got to play the town drunk. And Dick Donner, you know, he says, we need a town drunk, you know, and I said, I haven't had a drink in 11 years. And he says, perfect. He says, you can go back and remember what it was like to be the town drunk. And so it was really fun to do a Western, never done a Western before. So it was just a small, you know, part, but it was really a lot of fun.
Okay, great. Well, I've got some like set questions that are a bit odd, if you wouldn't mind answering them. Firstly, you may have to think about these actually. What's the worst thing that you've ever done and regretted in your life?
The worst thing I've ever done and regretted? Gee, that would be my career. It was either that or being a disgruntled postman. And I thought that it would probably be less dangerous to be a rock star. I wouldn't have to say my entire career. It would be something that would have to be well thought out.
Okay. And what's the most embarrassing thing that's ever happened to you, like within the band context, not you know, in personal life or anything?
Oh, so many things come to mind. No, you know, we went right past embarrassment. You know, we never got embarrassed because we realized there was no way to ever make a mistake. When you were Alice Cooper, there was no way of being embarrassed. We actually crossed those lines. We eliminated embarrassment from the menu because what we were doing was so embarrassing anyways to the general public. If you didn't really believe in it, and if you didn't really, you know, we were up against all the great bands in the world. And we started out being one of those bands that the press says, this band won't last 5 minutes up against the big boys. You know, that was 25 years ago. And, you know, we really believed in the band, not just in the theatrics, but in the music part of the band, you know. And so embarrassment, we just said, look, if we're going to be embarrassed about anything we do, we might as well just quit right now. Our job is to climb out as far as we can on the end of this limb, you know, and wherever they say you're supposed to stop, we're going to go about 4 miles past that. And then, you know, so embarrassment never played a part in it. I can't think of anything embarrassing that we ever did on stage. Okay. Maybe to my parents, you know. Probably the general public was embarrassed by some of the things, but I was never embarrassed.
Okay, great.
I do get embarrassed every once in a while when I forget the lyrics to School's Out, you know, after about 7,000 times.
What made you decide to be a rock star? Well, not, you know, you obviously didn't go out there thinking, I want to be a rock star, or did you?
Yes, yeah. I absolutely did. That was my plan from the start. I said, I'm never going to work a day in my life. I'm going to be a rock star. And I don't know how to sing, and I don't know how to write, and you know, the band, so we don't know how to play, so let's just start and learn everything. And that's pretty much how the band started. And I think the idea of not knowing anything about music except what we liked, and starting all together at the same time, that we all progressed at the same rate. And, you know, I mean, you can see it in our albums, that the albums got progressively better. The band learned how to play better. And it's all, and hopefully it stays like that. I mean, I hope that I haven't done my best album yet. You know, I hope that that's still somewhere up there in the future. You know, but I think when you hit a flat place, and you do every once in a while, you'll do an album and go, you know, my last album was better than that. That really makes you kick the next one. You know, it means you really try hard on the next one to take 2 steps. You've got to really prove it. You know, so I mean. Yeah, I mean, that's just, as far as I'm concerned, that's, you know, that was always the philosophy of the band, you know.